What is up, book nerds? I'm Rachel Bateman, and I am super excited about this video because it has been a full year in the making. Today, I want to talk about whether or not a writer needs to write every day in order to be a successful author. Now, if you have been on my channel in the past and watched my older videos, or talked to me on Instagram or Twitter back when I used to tweet, you know that my long-standing opinion on that is that you absolutely don't have to write every day in order to be an author. I really have traditionally hated that advice. I don't like that it makes people feel like they need to be taking time that they may not actually have available in order to work on their writing, or else they will never be successful. I have always been anti that advice. But I've also never been an author who writes every day. So I decided at the beginning of 2020 that I was going to work on my writing every day for a year to test this out and see if I felt the same at the end of a year of doing it. I have done that now, and I feel like I have a fairly decent view of what it's like to be an everyday writer versus a binge writer or an occasional writer. And with that, I feel like I can give an informed, well-rounded opinion on this. So first, I want to talk about where this advice comes from. You see it online everywhere. In fact, I looked up just before I started this video, I Googled, do you have to write every day in order to be an author? Just to see what popped up. The first two things that popped up were, if you want to be a writer, you have to write every day. The consistency, the monotony, the certainty, all vagaries and passions are covered by this daily reoccurrence. You don't go to a well once, but daily. You don't skip a child's breakfast or forget to wake up in the morning, although I will tell you that my children skip breakfast all the time. They're fine. The second thing that popped up was, if you want to get this writing thing down, you need to start writing every day. No questions asked, no exceptions made. After all, this isn't a hobby we're talking about, it's a discipline. Those were just two examples. There were tons and tons of examples. And you know, Stephen King does it, and Nicholas Sparks does it, and Roxane Gay does it, and William Faulkner did it, and all these famous, well-known authors do it, and you really just have to do this every day in order to be successful. So rather than just argue with that point, which is what I have done for my entire career as an author, I want to talk about how it went for me writing every day for a year, and what I feel about it now, having tried both ways. First, I'll let you know that traditionally I have been a binge writer. I will go months without writing anything, though I'm often brainstorming and percolating an idea during that time and outlining, but I don't want to, even when I'm doing that, I don't work on the outline every day. I'll have a writing night once a week and squeeze in time occasionally when I can, and then I will work the whole first draft out in 3 or 3.5 weeks in just a mad rush. And that's how I've traditionally written my books. So writing and working on my writing every day for a year was a very different world for me. First off, I want to be clear that I did not write new words every day in 2020. I did some editing, I did a lot of plotting and outlining and taking notes and getting ready to write. So when I talk about working on my writing every single day, it wasn't new words, fresh drafting stuff every day. And maybe, you know, the purists who say you have to write every single day would tell me that I did it wrong. I need to spend half an hour creating new content every day if I want to be in the habit of doing it. And so the whole year experiment was just, you know, a waste of an experiment because I didn't do it right. But I feel like I had the right intent of the experiment. What I told myself is that I would work on my writing every single day at least 10 minutes, which is not very much, but realistically, homeschooling and having 2 small kids and running a business and just a household, I don't always have a lot of time. So I made myself promise at least 10 minutes. Most days it was more than that. Here is what I discovered in my year of doing this. First, the pros. 1, I was able to stay immersed in my story better, so when I did have longer brainstorming sessions and longer plotting sessions, I had been thinking about it and taking notes and doing things throughout the week, so it was easier for me to work out that outline and really get into the story. I just was there already, and so that was easier for me. Number 2, when I sat down to write and to work on my projects, it was easier to get into the groove. When I start a new book, often it takes me a little while to find my groove and to, you know, retrain my brain away from the distraction. The fact that I was working on it every day made it easier to get into that groove, so less time was spent at the beginning of a writing session just trying to find my stride, and that was definitely very nice. And 3, and this was probably, to me, the biggest benefit of having worked on my writing every day, and that was that new ideas were just coming all the time, which, you know, sometimes is a little frustrating when you're trying to focus on one idea and new ideas come, but I just have a plethora of ideas and things to pull from now. I always had ideas coming all the time. I think a lot of creatives are familiar with that situation, but I feel like I was getting them more regularly and more fully formed. So I was just living in the creativity more frequently and more regularly. So I was getting more abundance out of that. And that was really nice. But there were definitely some cons to writing every day. And part of this was my personality, and part of it was we were in the middle of a worldwide pandemic in 2020. I mean, we still are, but it was heavy and there was a lot of changes and just life was different. And so maybe not the best time ever to try something completely new like this. Also, I had a lot of struggles with my business mostly because of the pandemic. All my suppliers, the supply chain was like non-existent anymore. And so I was just constantly having to try to find new suppliers and retest things with the new things that I could find. And it was just incredibly stressful and caused a lot of burnout and made things hard. So I just want to give those caveats that maybe had I done this in a different year, my cons and my experience on that would have been different. But this is how it panned out. The biggest con was that when I was writing or working on my writing every day, it's easier to phone it in. Meaning, if I'm exhausted at the end of the night, it was really easy to say, I'm gonna lie down in bed with my phone and spend 10 or 15 or 20 minutes tapping out notes for my plot. And that was like valid work that needed to be done. I had to work the plot out and figure out what I was doing with that. But it was also easy to just use that as an excuse. Like, I'm tired, I don't want to sit down with my computer right now. I'm just gonna, you know, tap out some notes. I'm gonna get this done and that'll be my writing for the day. And so it was easy to hone it in. And when I only have like one legitimate solid writing night each week, then I really value that time and I protect that time and I use it to the best of my ability. When I only have that Thursday night every week, I don't phone in that Thursday night. I focus and I crack down and I get the work done. So that's, you know, mostly on me and my personality, not the actual method of working on writing every day, but that was something I observed. The second thing I observed, and again, this could have been because of many outside factors that I have talked about, was that I got more burned out. And that wasn't a day-to-day thing. What it was is, you know, I said I normally write a book very, very fast. And I typically do that during NaNoWriMo. I'm an ML and I really enjoy NaNoWriMo. So I have this build-up and then I write it in November and I just push through until I'm done. And that usually happens around the 25th or so. And I finish the full novel. I barely made my 50,000 words by the end of the month this year because I was just so incredibly burned out. Now, there was a lot of life stuff and business stuff going on that could have contributed to that, but I also feel like that working on my writing every single day, I wasn't coming to it as enthusiastic and fresh and just ready to go and get it done as I have done in years past. And finally, my third con that I noticed for me is just sheer numbers. I wrote more words in 2019 than I did in 2020. Not working on my writing every day in 2019 produced more for me than working on it every day in 2020. Now, you could really pull this apart and look at all the different factors that worked together to make that the case and talk about how I was writing, you know, young adult contemporary in 2019 and that's my comfort zone, and I was trying something new in 2020 which was a little bit out of my comfort zone and my regular. There could be all kinds of reasons. But the reality is I track my writing sessions, I track how much I write every time I write, and I track my writing throughout the year. And I wrote more in 2019 than 2020. I was more productive as a binge writer and an occasional writer than I was as an everyday writer. So for me, I know what works best for me. Now, this was a fun experiment and I'm glad I did it, and I actually think I'll probably try to work in more regular writing time throughout the year so I can get the best of both worlds, so it's not such a, you know, one day a week and then write a book in a month situation like I've done in the past. Kind of find a middle ground. But I think that's the most important thing. When you see people saying, if you want to be an author, you have to write every day. What they're saying is, I write every day, or I have observed other writers that write every day. And so I'm going to tell you that's what you have to do. Just like when I say, you absolutely don't have to write every day. I mean, I truly believe you don't have to, but I'm not going to tell you, you should only write one night a week, or you should only write fast first drafts a couple times a year. I'm not going to tell you that, because what the takeaway here is that every author needs to figure out what works best for them personally. Track your writing, see when you're most efficient, see what works best for you, when you're able to get in the story more, when you're able to produce the best writing. Try a few different things and find the method that works for you. Writing is not a one-size-fits-all endeavor. One way does not work for everyone, and it never will. We all have to figure out the best path for us and the best method for us and how it works best for us. So in the end, my big takeaway is exactly where I started before I did this experiment, and that's that I do not believe a person needs to write every day to be a successful author. I just don't. I feel like that advice puts up an invisible barrier for a lot of people, because when writers are new and enthusiastic and wanting to get into the business and wanting to learn, they go out and they look for advice. And they see people say over and over again, you have to write every day. You need to get up at 5 a.m. and get an hour of writing in before anyone else in your house is moving so you can focus. Or you need to set aside your lunch break and make sure you type frantically for half an hour instead of like having a relaxing meal. You need to stay up after everyone else is in bed, sometimes till midnight or 2 or 3 a.m. to get the words done so you can be prolific and you can get all this writing done. And they read this and they think, this doesn't work with my lifestyle. And so they don't. It's really sad to me that authors who others will look to for advice will ever give a one-size-fits-all piece of advice. That's really sad for me, that when a new writer asks someone whose career they admire how to do something, and the answer is, you must do it my way. And that kills the spirit of people who are unable, for whatever reason, to do it that way. And I know there's an argument that you can find time to write every day, and sure, most people, maybe all people, but most people can find time in every day to work on their writing. I'm not debating that. What I'm debating is that you have to find time every day to work on your writing. I don't think that is the case. It has not been the case for me, and I have found success with my writing. I am very happy with my career and the books I produced, and I know tons of other authors who are too. So if you're wondering if you need to write every day to be an author, I am giving you permission right now to just say, no, I don't. Find what works for you. Take the time that you are able to dedicate to your writing and use it to the best of your ability, and go out and create awesome things. I am Rachel Bateman, and I'll see you back here next time.